welcome to Half the Battle. Today we're going all the way back to the beginning, to 1982 and one of the original 12 G.I. Joes.
Meet Grand Slam. This figure was released in 1982 and 83 with, sort of original body parts. From a certain point of view.
Yeah, this is gonna take some explaining again.
When G.I. Joe, a real American hero, was created, Hasbro tried to save as much money as possible. To help with that, almost all of the original Joes shared body parts. Grand Slam had the same head as Grunt and Zap, for example, while his arms, legs and torso are shared with Flash. Also, every male member of the Joe team has the same crotch. Member. This leads to many of the Joes looking somewhat similar to each other, with the exception of Scarlet and Snake Eyes, obviously. All are wearing basic green uniforms. Grand Slam, and by extension Flash, are different, since they have red protective patches on their torso, legs and arms.
This is both good and bad.
Good, because it distinguishes them from the other Joes, but bad, because it means they are practically identical. Sure, they have different heads, but even that difference is obscured when they wear their helmets and visors. This can get confusing, is all I'm saying. Anyway, on to the figure itself, and by the way, I'm showing you the updated version with swiveling elbows. The very first batch of figures from 82 had elbow joints that could only move up and down. Fortunately, this was changed so we can enjoy the original team with proper arm articulation. The toy itself is fine, if not great. The padding is nicely detailed and really sets this guy apart from the rest of the team. Well, ignoring Flash anyway. I like that they bothered to paint the straps on his back, and they put a silver lining around the chest padding. Those are some nice touches. His only accessories were his helmet and visor, and he shares those with other figures too. Though in this case, they are appropriate.
We'll see why when we discuss the character later.
In conclusion, it's a damn fine figure, especially for 1982-83, worthy of being in any collection. But I just wish it was more distinguishable from Flash. Fortunately, he got a second toy that accomplished just that. Also released in 1983, this second version is referred to by the fan community as Silver Pads Grand Slam for, obvious reasons. It's identical to the first version, with the exception that anything that was painted red before is now silver. There's not much more to say here, really, except to say which version I prefer. And honestly, if the Flash figure didn't exist, I'd prefer the original. But since it does, and is almost identical to Grand Slam, my favorite is the second version, since that one is at least distinct enough from Flash. Oh, and Silver Grand Slam is one of the rarer figures out there, so good luck finding one, and in good condition too.
There's a reason why he's so rare, and we'll get to that now.
You see, both versions of Grand Slam were vehicle drivers.
Well, I should really say vehicle drivers. I'll explain.
The red one came with the heavy artillery laser, or HAL for short. I can't really say much about it since I don't have one. I will mention I find it strange that it's called artillery. I mean, I know cannons and such can shoot in a straight line, but artillery to me means lobbing shells in an arch, something a laser beam really doesn't do. It's not really a vehicle since it's designed to be towed by real vehicles and just sits there on the ground, otherwise firing its laser. By the way, this is the justification why Grand Slam and Flash have the same outfit. They both work with lasers, and the padding is supposed to be some sort of laser protective gear or something, same with the helmet and visors. The Silver Grand Slam came with a jump jetpack, which I guess is a vehicle, sort of. It's also the reason he's so rare. For one thing, it was released as a standalone toy earlier without an action figure. They added Grand Slam later, so fewer action figures exist. For another thing, it was a jetpack, so kids could and would throw it in the air like they just didn't care. And an early G.I. Joe figure, being already somewhat fragile, will break if you do stuff like this to it. Yeah, I used a very old clip from my Annihilator review here.
And no way I was throwing this guy out the window. I'm stupid, but I'm not that stupid.
So, a toy with a limited run, plus rough play by kids, means this thing is freaking hard to find.
And precious, my precious.
Grand Slam did get some more figures after the original line ended, and I'll briefly talk about a few. The next time we got a Grand Slam figure was in 2006.
23 freaking years after his last toy came out. That's one hell of a wait.
It's a great homage and the updated look is spot on. But due to the existence of Flash, the figure could represent either of them. No foolin', when I was gathering the toys for this review, I left this thing on the shelves because I thought it was Flash. By the way, if you think this figure meant Grand Slam finally got a toy sculpt of his own, then you clearly don't know Hasbro. It's a repainted Bazooka figure. Though I have to admit, the sculpt looks far better as a Grand Slam / Flash update than as Bazooka. The last figure I have is from 2008 and was a Target exclusive. It's an update of the silver version, using the new type of body construction seen for movie and anniversary figures. It's okay. There's some good detailing, like the belt buckle, though I'm not sure if it's an arrow pointing up or a small house, and it's also a good homage. So does this mean Grand Slam has his own body now?
Nope!
It's a reuse of another frickin' Flash figure.
This guy just can't catch a break! No, really, I looked this up.
There have been 8 different Grand Slam figures made over the years, and he's never ever had a single original body part. He's always been made up of other figures for 8 frickin' versions.
That's gotta be some kind of record.
One last thing about this Grand Slam. He came with the Night Spectre, a recolor of the Shark Plane submarine hybrid thingy. Grand Slam sure has an eclectic career, doesn't he? A laser operator, jetpack guy, and now both the pilot and submarine commander. In conclusion, as far as the toys go, yeah, my favorite version is still the silver one from 1983, because it's distinct and rare.
And precious!
Though I have to say, to be fair to the other toys, Grand Slam never got a bad figure made of him. Or an original one, unfortunately.
With that, let's move on to the character, starting with the file card.
First of all, he's from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. I mention this because there's a subtle reference there. This city is the birthplace of Seymour Cray. He was an electrical engineer and founder of Cray Research. He's considered to be the father of supercomputing. It's significant because Grand Slam's secondary military specialty is electronics engineer, his first specialty being artillery.
Now, that's too specific to just be a coincidence, so I'm calling it a very subtle homage.
Anyway, most of the file card talks about his artillery training and weapons proficiency, with only one sentence devoted to his character, but it's an interesting sentence. He is soft-spoken, calm, and a bit shy, and he loves reading science fiction and comic books.
A guy after my own heart.
This also explains why he operated a laser cannon and later a jetpack. Those are the sort of toys, no pun intended, science fiction geeks would love to get their hands on. A later file card pretty much confirms this. Moving on to the comic, the internet didn't have a whole lot to say about his appearances there, so I reread the first 20 comics to see if he did anything.
Sometimes I love this job.
He's introduced in the first issue, like all of the original Joe team, but doesn't do much outside of sitting in the Vamp Jeep. The only notable thing he did in the first 20 issues was jump on a moving bus to capture Major Blood and beat the crap out of him, which he did. He mostly shows up in the background in other issues, though sometimes it's hard to tell if it's him or Flash, because they look the same in the books too. When they're in the background, you have to look to see if the character is carrying a laser rifle, then it's Flash.
By the way, if you think I'm the only one that can't tell these two apart, the freaking comic book can't either!
In issue 6, a team is sent to Afghanistan, and one name on the list is Grand Slam, but it's Flash who actually ends up being the character going on the mission. His only other somewhat notable appearance, I remember, is in issue 82, 6 frickin' years after his last toy came out. It's all about the boot camp for Joe recruits, and we learn Grand Slam has become a drill sergeant there. He ends up getting shot, but survives. It was a nice issue that showed some of the old guard mixing with the new recruits, as Sepp and Steeler also made appearances. So, as far as the comic goes, he's very much a background character, with the added complication that you often can't tell if it's him or Flash.
As far as the cartoon goes, well, here are Grand Slam's appearances according to the internet. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, apparently he only appears in the opening theme.
I wasn't really satisfied with that, so I decided to rewatch the original Mass Device cartoon miniseries. Did I mention that sometimes I really love this job? Anyway, my conclusions were inconclusive.
Let me explain. There is a character that could be Grand Slam, but it could also be Flash. He shows up in the background, except for one sequence, but is never referenced by name and he never speaks. There's only one part where the guy actually does anything in a cave fighting robots, but there's no way to know who he is. I can't even get a clue from the weapon he uses this time, since he has a flamethrower, something that Flash nor Grand Slam ever used. So as far as I'm concerned, the character in the cartoon is called, Grand Flash, and he's a background character, probably because a lot of the original Joes were already being phased out by the time the cartoon was made. And that was Grand Slam. In conclusion, he's an interesting, fun character that got no respect. Never got an original toy, and is seen in the background mostly in other media where you could only sometimes tell it was him, like Schrödinger's Joe or something. Still, I know I've been harping on about him and Flash looking so similar, and that being off-putting, but I do have to mention the first toys of both of them were great and some of the best in the original 82-83 line. And I hope that with this episode, I've managed to drag Grand Slam into the limelight at least a little bit.
He really is one of the unsung heroes of G.I. Joe, and I salute him. Well, see you next time, everybody. And hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing.